Well, if you're watching this video, I assume you purchased one of these modern form smart fans. In this case, this is the Mykonos variety. And what I'm going to do is try and take you through a simplified method of putting this thing together. I went through the book just like you're going to have to go through, but if you watch this along with the book, it's going to make it a heck of a lot easier. I'll go ahead and start off by giving you a little bit of electrical safety to start with. This video is mostly a mechanical application of putting the parts together and installing it on your ceiling. The electrical I gloss over, and in fact I ran into some real problems because I didn't have any ground wire going to the ceiling or to the switch. So I had to bring in an electrician to do that, and it was expensive. But this will help you put this ceiling fan up and get it running for you, and I hope you enjoy watching it. First step is switch off the power switch in the power box, and you can see here I've switched it off. And to make sure, I also had my wife standing in that bedroom with the light on, watching it go off, so I know it's off. Step 2 would be to lay out all the materials from the box, checking to see if they're all in place, and putting them in some kind of order so you can see them easily. The next step says to secure the mounting bracket, that's this thing here, to the ceiling outlet box with screws and washers provided with the outlet box. So you should look around and find something like this. I only had one, so I hunted in the garage, and I've got my washers, I've got my screws, and the rubber pads here go up against your ceiling. So you're going to go through these holes on each side, and you're going to hook it to your electrical box. This is the mounting bolt we just secured to the ceiling to the electrical box. And when I try to shake this, you can see it's very tight. It's not going anywhere. Now we loosen this screw on the hanger ball, and after I pre-loosen this off screen, and then we lower this hanger ball and remove it, and then we also take this pin out. Set them aside somewhere where you don't lose them. Now, unless I'm reading incorrectly, the instructions are kind of backwards in the book. It says remove the kleva pin and cotter pin and loosen the two collar screws. Well, this is the kleva pin right here passing through the center, and you cannot remove that until you take the cotter pin because it's holding the cotter pin. So we're going to reach in here. I have a pliers. I'm going to pinch the end of this and give it a good pull. I took it out. And then I can take this kleva pin out, and then the next instruction says to loosen these two screws. I've done that off camera so you can see they're both loose. Our next instruction is to take all the wires and thread them through this down rod, and the wires, and then there's a safety cable that goes through there too. Notice the threads are here, and then you're supposed to very carefully slip this over, and there's a lot of junk here, but it does fit. And then when you get it over, then you can thread it down onto those threads and snug it all the way down. You have a lot of extra wire that's probably going to have to be trimmed away unless you have a really long high ceiling application. Here's a couple of issues you might run into while you're threading this pipe down. If it seems to stop, you need to back these screws out a little bit further. You keep going down until you can see light through the hole that's drilled through these threads, because you're going to need to push this thing here called a kleva pin right through that hole and pop it out this side. Again, the instructions are backwards. You can't put the cotter pin in first and then the kleva pin, because now's the time when the cotter pin goes in there and locks this kleva pin into place. Our next instruction says to tighten the two collar screws, and failure to do this properly or attach the cotter pin could cause the fan to fall. And tighten it really well. So those are good and tight now. So we have these two tightened. We have this cotter pin that's in place here. So this isn't going to go anywhere. Next we're going to take this thing called a coupling cover, and you're going to thread almost 1.5 meters to 2 meters of wire and cable through it. Then you're going to bring it through here and just set it on down. So it's going to sit right down on top of all that stuff, just like that. Now you're going to take the canopy screw cover, put the wires through it, and have the paint down. So you're going to go down like this with the paint. Now we take the canopy cover, after having threaded the wires through it, and we put it painted side down, right like that. Our next instruction is to carefully reinstall the hanger ball onto the down rod, being sure that the cross pin is in the correct position. So what I finally figured out is this is put in like this, and then you take this cross pin and you thread it through, and when you get it where it's sticking out about the same on both sides, you slip this up and it fits into like a little gap there. And then you can turn this around and you can tighten this screw to hold this ball in place. It's a little confusing. It's too bad, but every time you install one of these, it's the first time and probably the last time, so it's a learning experience. So that's what it should look like when you're done. This wasn't too hard to do. I took this hanger ball and it slipped into an opening on this back side here, and it dropped into this sleeve, and you just have to make sure there's a little slit here and there's a groove in the sleeve, and it locks into that. So make sure that this little groove here is locked into the sleeve. Now I can tell I'm going to have a lot of fun with this because look how much wire I have up here. Looks like about 2 inches coming down, and I've got a couple of meters of wire coming out that I'm going to have to trim. And when we start trimming wire, you got to be careful because it's very hard to make a wire longer. It's easy to make it short, so we're going to be conservative on that trimming. Well, here's the mess of wires that I've connected. Fortunately, they're all labeled very well. Just be careful to read every label on the wire and connect them in the order they tell you in the book. I am no electrician, so if you're confused by this, get an electrician and don't make yourself a fire or an electrocution. I did wrap each wire. After I twisted the wire, I wrapped each one around with black friction tape, screwed it into the wire nut, and then notice I put friction tape on the outside, and that holds everything in place because oftentimes these wires, when they're twisted, they'll want to untwist on their own. So I think I've really stabilized each one of these. Okay, to orient you on how you're looking at this, I have the camera on the floor shooting straight up into the light fixture. The first thing they tell you in the book to do is you will find 1, 2, 3 screw heads, and you are to loosen 2 of them and totally remove 1. After you've done that, you carefully hold your light fixture underneath, and you will notice 2 wires coming down, and on the bottom of your light fixture you have 2 adjoining wires that you can only coupling in one way. Plug those in, and once you've plugged those in, you don't try to put the wires up against the lamp itself, but put them behind this fixture. There's a little cavity in there. Lift it up and make sure the larger holes slip over the 2 remaining screws and twist it to lock it into the smaller part of the sleeve. Once you've done that, tighten the screws with a screwdriver and then put in that remaining screw that you removed, and you're good to go. We take this fan blade and lift it up, and you can see printed right here, it says this side up, and there's a little indentation here that will fit this rubber washer around the screw to prevent vibrations. And then we take this and set it down. It's pretty hard to mess this up because there's actually little threaded areas that are popping up and allows you to put them right in place. So I'm just finger tightening them in here. There's 3 of them. And then when you get all 3 of those finger tightened, you can go back and tighten them with the screwdriver. You'll notice we have threads in the glass here, and the threads are going to fit right up here in these little dimples. And you simply hold it like this, lift, and let it drop into the slot, and tighten until it can't tighten anymore. And that's it.